Alright, people, review of the week time. So, the bulk of the first half of this is probably going to be on the Josh Taylor Teofimo Lopez fight that happened obviously over the course of the weekend. Great performance, as I said, from Teofimo Lopez. It was, a lot of people would point to the Lomachenko performance as his best, but I feel this was actually a notch above that. He was tremendously impressive. For me, Teofimo Lopez is a talented fighter. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Whenever he's on form, he's a joy to watch. But it's those inconsistencies he has. He has one great performance, and then maybe he has two lackluster performances, or in the case of George Kambosos. Now, I do think Kambosos' style did cause Lopez a few issues, but he underperformed in many ways that night. I mean, I know he had some personal stuff going on. I think it was around about then when he separated from his wife, and obviously he's going through a divorce procedure now. He definitely had something wrong with his lung in that fight, I know that. And I think there was something else going on as well behind the scenes. So in that fight, it was literally a case of everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. And he met a bad style, so it obviously culminated in him taking an L against George Kambosos. In this fight, seemed like he was in a much better place mentally, physically, in every aspect, truth be told. Whereas Josh Taylor, I said it in the live, it's... A lot of people were asking me, do they think it's weight? Do they think... What was the reason why Josh Taylor looked so pedestrian in there, and why he seemed just unwilling to go and meet fire with fire? And I say, well, it could be a variety of reasons. In terms of weight, I thought he looked actually okay on the scale. I'd seen him look a lot worse, so I think that the weight management was done a lot better this time. I think that the only thing I can really think of is that Josh Taylor peaked very early in his career. He peaked around about, probably from 2018 to 2021. That kind of 3-year period, you're talking Josh Taylor probably at his best, probably at his peak then. He's 32 years old now. He's had some hard fights, but not a massively punishing career. But I think that inactivity, not leading the cleanest lifestyle at all times outside the ring, and maybe just peaking too soon, culminated in Josh Taylor looking the way he did. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a weight issue, though I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to 147 next. I think that it was just all those factors just coming on top of one another, and I think that he did feel the power of Lopez. Josh Taylor is defensively not amazing. I mean, he's not terrible, but he's not amazing defensively, so he is able to get hit. And I think that for Josh Taylor, the will for battle, because, he's been in there with punchers like Regis Prograis, who I would say Lopez probably has a little bit more power, truth be told, but I wouldn't say the power difference is that great between the two of them. He was willing to take some of them shots to land his own, not in this fight. So that's really what happened in the fight. That's the outcome of the fight. Lopez with a tremendous win, and that's the only fight I actually seen from this card. I see Conseil Seo has a no decision, so I'd assume there was a headbutt or something in that fight. But in terms of what Taylor does, 147 seems the honest choice to go next. In terms of Lopez, well, this was his last fight with Top Rank. So if he sticks around with Top Rank, I would expect him to stay with Top Rank if Top Rank acquire Devin Haney, because he'll look to do that fight, and it's a big fight. If he doesn't stay with Top Rank, if he goes to, say, Golden Boy, well, there's the Ryan Garcia fight. I don't envision Lopez going to PBC. You don't see many fighters go over there. I know, obviously, there's potential for Tank Davis. There's potential there. But I just don't. And to be honest with you, I think that if they acquire Devin Haney, you might also want to look at Shakur when he eventually moves up to 140. So, I don't know. For me, it's a case of, and obviously if you want to go Prograis, you go with Eddie Hearn. But you could technically probably go with Golden Boy and still get that fight because it's on the same network. So, let's see what Lopez does. Let's see what he does here. In terms of some of the other cards that were on last night, let's go all the way back to Friday. David Adelaide got a win over Imar Akhmadov. I think is how you say that. Akhmakayev or something like that. Yeah, it was a workmanlike performance. David Adelaide did what he needed to do. Obviously, Hrgovic stopped him a couple of years ago in 3 rounds. Adelaide moves on. Obviously, I think the main kind of fight for him now at this stage would be against Fabio Wadley. Obviously, Wadley was ordered to fight... what's that guy's name? Fraser Clark. I had to think there. Whatever reason, I think Clark would have went through with it, but Ben Shalom just seems unwilling to do that fight for whatever reason. So why not do Adelaide versus Wadley next? Adelaide I've watched Adelie since he turned pro, and yeah, for me, I can definitely look. There is a little bit of potential there, but I'm yet to really be fully convinced about Adelie, truth be told. I'm really not fully convinced. However, saying that, I'm not fully convinced about Fabio Wadley either. So, the two of them going at it, I would probably just edge Adelie. Probably would just edge him. In terms of the undercard, obviously Mark Chamberlain got a nice win on there. There's talk of him going in there against Jason Cunningham next, which will be an interesting fight. Obviously Cunningham is still rebuilding, following on from that loss against Alani Tete last year, in which he was badly stopped. It was a bad knockout, and obviously Tete went on to subsequently fail a UCAD test, and I think the B sample came back positive as well. So it makes that loss, it put that loss in context in a sense of he was fighting the juiced up guy, but yeah, it's the manner of that loss though, if you know what I mean. Even though, yeah, you could say the guy was juiced up, he was still beaten pretty bad, you know, in terms of neurological damage. In terms of the zone card that happened on Saturday, obviously Sonny Edwards versus Andreas Kapos. Workmanlike performance from Sonny Edwards, did what he needed to do. Edwards is what Edwards is, you know, he's not a particularly big puncher. He moves around quite well. There is definitely talent there, there's no doubt about that. Him against the upper echelon guys of the division, because obviously he's top at unifications. If you put him in there against Bam Rodriguez, I wouldn't be picking him to win. I'd be picking Bam definitely. If you put him in there against Martinez, that's an interesting one, because I might favour Edwards just based on styles in that fight. I know Martinez hasn't been looking amazing as of late, and a lot of people would factor that into the equation, but I spoke about this already. I look at that Andrew Selby fight that he had many years ago now, and Selby is, I mean, a pound shop Sonny Edwards, and at the time he had his own issues that he was going through. So he was able to do quite well early on in that fight before obviously getting stopped with a fast count, mind you, in Argentina, I think is where that fight was, or Mexico, one or the other. So I'd be giving him an edge probably over Martinez, but against the top guys like, you know, the Bam Rodriguez's of the world, or if he went to 115 and fought, you know, the Nakatanis of the world, I wouldn't be holding out much hope in Sonny Edwards getting the win. In terms of on the undercard, obviously Johnny Fisher. Johnny Fisher's an interesting one. I'm still like, I still don't see it. Some people get real hyped about Fisher. I don't get it. I really don't see what the big deal is. Reece Bellotti got a win. I mean, that's his first kind of big win probably of his whole career. I mean, he's been losing a lot as of late, and maybe he's reignited himself. You know, maybe he's reignited himself with this win. Nia Hughes beats Katie Healy. To be expected. Katie Healy has a lot of potential, but she's only been pro for less than 2 years, and she needs a lot more work, truth be told. I think that fight came maybe a year, 18 months too soon. Ellie Scottney got a win over Sharika Johnson, who is one of those OnlyFan types, which is just... That's why I respect Ellie Scottney a lot more, because she doesn't go around with any of that nonsense. And she got the win there, credit to her. She is now the IBF champion at £118. So that was, as quick as I can, get through those three main cards. In terms of Lopez, we'll talk about this little statement he made here. So, put up a picture of himself and he said, "What a relief. Retire at the top. Thank you, boxing, for the amazing life you provided for myself and my loved ones." So, Lopez, is he hinting that retirement could be next, or has he already done it? I wonder if that was just a spur of the moment, because Lopez does strike me as an emotional character, and I wonder if that was emotions running high post-fight, and then he just decided, I'll make this statement, and now he'll reflect and say, hang on a minute, there's potentially a Devin Haney fight there, potentially a Tank fight there. I'm going to stick around. So that's the situation with Lopez. I forgot to mention as well, actually, Jaime Munguia versus Sergei Derevchenko. Look, some people don't like Jaime Munguia for whatever reason. I think that a lot of people feel as though his run at 154 pounds, he picked up the title of Saddam Ali, a weak champion, which is true. And, you know, he did what he needed to do. He fought guys like Liam Smith. That win's looking actually quite well now. It's aged very well, that win over Liam Smith. He then went to 160 and did absolutely nothing. Did nothing at 160. Now I think he's fighting at 168. You know, Shane Mosley Jr. is on the undercard, and he actually fought one of Munguia's previous opponent's last fight, and God forbid they try and do that fight next, because Shane Mosley Jr. Shane Mosley Jr. lost against Jay Quigley, for God's sake. If you're losing against him, that says it all. But Munguia is always going to be fun to watch. You know, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's good, whether you think he's overrated, at the end of the day, he's never going to be in a boring fight. He's always going to be entertaining, and that Derevchenko fight was tremendous. So I'm always looking forward to seeing Jaime Munguia when he's in the ring. He's definitely entertaining, he's definitely valued for money. But just in terms of how he's been manoeuvred as a pro, he's 42-0. For the last few years, he's just been completely irrelevant in the middleweight division, and probably now the super middleweight division. It's crazy. It really is. Mike Coppinger is reporting that Joshua is now very close to closing in on a deal to rematch Dillian Whyte on August the 12th. So Joshua versus Dillian Whyte seemingly all set to go for August the 12th. I'm also going to touch on Deontay Wilder. There's talk about coming back as well, because I was actually wondering about that myself during the week. But Joshua versus Whyte, it makes sense, you know, for Joshua to keep his rehabilitation going, which he needs, because I really do think if he was to go in there with Wilder, having only had the Jermaine Franklin fight, that wouldn't bode well for him. It wouldn't. Especially if Wilder was maybe going to have an interim fight as well. It wouldn't bode well for him. So him going in there against Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte poses a certain level of danger. He definitely does. When you're someone like Dillian Whyte with tremendous power in the left hook, and you're going in there with someone like Joshua, who is a bit vulnerable, fair to say, and even if you don't knock him out per se, if you hurt him, he tends to stay hurt for a while. So there's always an area of vulnerability around Joshua, and there's always a chance, right? However, Dillian Whyte really only has the left hook now at this point in his career. He's slowed down an awful lot. He's getting hurt every single time he steps in the ring now. And Joshua, what he needs, Joshua can say what he wants about, well, I'm a boxer now, etc., etc. Deep down, Joshua does want to get these stops. He does want to impress. He fights very safety first, especially when he's in there against someone who he's kind of a bit unsure about and he doesn't really know. He knows Dillian Whyte. He knows what to bring. He knows he's beaten Dillian Whyte already. He's made mistakes in that fight against Dillian Whyte all those years ago. He's improved as a fighter since then. He's matured as a fighter. So he's going to know what to do and what not to do. But he's going to know, I can hurt this guy. I can drop him. I can stop him. And probably taking a bit more confidence from the fact that Dillian Whyte's been dropped and stopped loads of times now. He's actually been dropped enough times that he's like, right, look, I've dropped and stopped this guy before, and he was tougher back then. I'm going to take this guy's head clean off now. And I think that will help him. I really, truly do. I think in terms of him rehabilitating himself and getting a bit of confidence. Joshua is never going to be a Tyson Fury in terms of confidence, right? He's never going to have that level of confidence, but he definitely can improve it. He definitely can get back to a reasonable level where he's going in against guys like Wilder and not second guessing himself or questioning himself. How he does that is by looking devastating against guys like Dillian Whyte. And I think that's what he's going to do, and I think it's going to help him. In terms of other rematches, the Joe Joyce Zilli Zhang rematch reportedly going to be set for September the 2nd. Now, Mike Coppinger is not specifying where it's going to be. I would imagine they're probably going to keep it in London. Maybe instead of the Copper Box, they'll bring it to the OVO because it'd be a bit of a bigger fight this time. Although the Copper Box is a good little spot, the OVO is bigger. So let's see what happens there. Obviously, my thoughts on the rematch would be it's probably going to be a repeat. I don't know what Joe Joyce can do differently, truth be told, because realistically, he couldn't. He literally didn't even look like he was ready for a southpaw in that fight. It was crazy. Okay, so Bivol has now declared that Canelo Alvarez, the rematch, is not happening in September and insists he will be focused on an undisputed fight versus Artur Beterbiev, which I seriously doubt we'll get. I'd love to get it. I'd love to say we'll get it, but I seriously doubt we're going to get it. I've resigned myself to the fact that fight ain't going to happen. Right? Eddie Hearn has been mentioning that there's going to be a show in the UAE sometime in September. I would imagine they'll probably get Bivol to headline it, but here is the question. Who the hell does he fight? Because Beterbiev and Smith are fighting. Buatsi's already turned that fight down. Yard's only just coming off the back of a loss. Joe Smith, don't know what's going on with him. And he's already fought and lost to Dimitri Bivol. Who would he actually fight? A relevant contender, that's therein is the question. In terms of Canelo Alvarez, I said this long ago, and I'm surprised it's only being mentioned now. But Eddie Hearn, in an interview with Boxing King Media, said that they've had talks with Canelo about potentially making Badou Jack in Saudi Arabia for Jack's WBC Cruiserweight title. Eddie Hearn said, I like the fight. I don't think Eddie Reynoso was rushing around that fight, but it might have some legs. I'm amazed that they haven't talked about this earlier. I'm absolutely amazed that they've not mentioned this fight earlier, because think about it like this, right? Alvarez versus Bivol, that's more a legacy fight. Alvarez versus Benavidez, that's more a money fight. Jack has both, right? Not necessarily the legacy in the sense of you're beaten and all. Now, Jack is a tremendous fighter, don't get me wrong, he definitely is, but he's seen much better days. You know, he's not really a cruiserweight, let's be frank. He's really more just a blown up light heavyweight. He's the weakest champion at 200 pounds. He's the poster boy for boxing in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, the pockets they have are so deep. You could get crazy kind of money, like crazy money for fighting over there, and you'll get a chance to become a 5-weight world champion. So I'm amazed they haven't mentioned that fight sooner. They're only mentioning it now. And given the fact that the Dimitri Bivol fight seemingly is not going to happen, and Canelo Alvarez versus Benavidez, according to Benavidez' promoter, has now confirmed that Canelo and Reynoso didn't even respond to their offer for a fight in September. So both his options are pretty much gone now. So Badou Jack seems to be the most likely. I mean, who else would he fight realistically at 168, 175? You know, he really doesn't have any business at 75, or truth be told at 200. But the Saudis would pay an awful lot to have Alvarez over there, definitely. Now, Deontay Wilder has declared that he fully believes the Joshua fight will happen in December in Saudi Arabia. The offer is out there and it's a real thing. I think it's definitely going to take place. That is what Deontay Wilder has said. He's also said that his next fight will either take place in August, but no later than September. Okay? Now, I spoke about this already, and definitely I basically said that Wilder, if Joshua was having an interim fight, as in he's having a fight against Dillian Whyte in August, it would make sense for Wilder to have one as well. Now, look, when you have a fight of this magnitude in the pipeline, you really don't want to take risks unless you're forced in a position to do it. What I mean by that is, when there was talk of Joshua Fury, and obviously we know what the situation there happened with the whole Fury saying that the fight's going to happen in August, and then the arbitration happened. Joshua was put in a situation where he had to fight his mandatory Alexander Usyk, and Fury obviously had to fight Deontay Wilder. Two extremely tough opponents, two very good opponents, world-class opponents. That is a recipe for disaster. If you have a fight that you're planning for next year, obviously this is going back to 2021, against two people, and they both have to get through a world-level opponent before that fight can happen, there's always going to be someone who's going to come unstuck. With this, however, there's no mandatories, there's no world titles, etc. So both guys could have a reasonably easy, just go in there, run out, get the ring rust off, and then fight in December. Joshua against Dillian Whyte. Who would you put Deontay Wilder in there with, though? Therein is the question. Because Wilder against Hellenius was perfect. It was a perfect comeback opponent. Who would you put him in there with now, though? Because you're not going to want to go near the top 10 just to be on the safe side if you have this fight lined up and it's a mega money fight. So you would obviously, like, to be honest with you, if I was in Team Wilder and I was looking for someone not too dissimilar in terms of dimensions to Anthony Joshua, I know we've seen it already, but I wouldn't actually, if I was there, I'd be saying maybe Gerald Washington again, because similar-ish dimensions to Joshua. You don't want to go in there with someone who's 6'2" when you're getting ready, you know, in December to fight someone who's 6'6". You know, you want to go in there with someone who is mirroring Joshua even slightly, you know. So let's see who Wilder goes in there with next. I mean, for me, it made sense that he had to take an interim fight, because if Joshua didn't fight, say he didn't fight Dillian Whyte and he just went straight into the Wilder fight in December, and Wilder didn't fight either, Joshua would have roughly 8 months of inactivity. Wilder would have 14 months. It's a big difference. Eddie Hearn, now I was already talking about this, that Eddie Hearn was saying that Warren was critical of Joshua versus Whyte, in spite of the fact that he put on Tyson Fury versus Derek Chisora. I remember Eddie Hearn talking about that, and he's absolutely spot on, to be honest with you. I mean, I just can't believe that Frank Warren, when he's put that fight on, he can not knock a fight like Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. He can't. because Joshua versus Dylan Whyte is a non-title fight. You know, I doubt there'll be any kind of trick of title or anything like that on the line, right? Whereas he put on that fight pay-per-view behind a paywall, and just to rub salt in the wounds before Christmas, and he does it at a UK record price. I mean, just really, yeah, that is Frank Warren for you. But yet he'll go and he'll criticise another promoter for putting on a fight between, you know, two guys where one's clearly still got something left and the other one doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's not being sold as a world title fight. So there you go. There you go. In terms of everything else, I think we're pretty much all good in terms of news. So I'll leave it there, people. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I'm actually off this week from work, so I've not got too much on during the day, so we can focus, get the videos out, and we can do plenty of stuff on here. So let me know your thoughts. Hit the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Much appreciated to everyone for dropping in, for everyone watching. The live last night went off without a hitch. Thanks again for everyone who joined in. For now, I'll leave you with that, people. Smash the like button.